Welcome to Books on Air, the podcast you don't want to miss. You're about to get a sneak peek at what goes on behind the scenes with authors. You'll find out their secret recipe for creating a book. You'll find out where they get their ideas, and you will get the inside scoop on their newest project. Want to know more? Great. We'll tell you where to find them on social media. Are you ready? Okay, let's meet the author. Joining me today is J.C. Fields. He's the author of the award-winning Sean Kruger Mystery Suspense series. He's here today to talk about number 6 in the series, The Dark Trail. J.C. has a degree in psychology. He's got 5 years' experience in the computer industry and a long career of dealing with, in his words, individuals possessing quirky personalities. And he's chosen to incorporate that experience and some of those quirky personalities into his writing. He's also active in numerous writers' groups, and he serves on the board of the Springfield Writers Guild. The Sean Kruger novels have won numerous awards, including 2 gold Reader's Favorite medals and 1 silver. Wow, welcome, J.C.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to this.
You know, I have to tell you, this is our secret, but mystery suspense is my very favorite genre. I just love the way that these books unfold, and I think you just pulled me right in. I read the excerpt, and I was just right there with you. And I'm very curious. Often, there's a reason that a writer begins to write. Are you one of those people that when you were young, something happened and you decided to write? Was there a teacher? Was there an influence? What's the story?
Well, that's a great question. When I was young, my mom always took me to the library. Let's back up, because she was one of those individuals. If she was sitting down, she had a book in her hand. And as a child, that registers. So we went to the library probably every 2 weeks. And I would wander the aisles while she was looking for something for herself. I would wander the aisles, and I was enthralled with science fiction. So I read all the great masters, Heinlein, Asimov, all those, Bradbury, all those individuals who created such wonderful stories. And as I was reading, I would always wonder what it would be like to create my own adventure like that. And that desire to write has been there ever since. I wrote my first short story in high school. I got a B+ on it, actually. And then I was marked off with punctuation and spelling, but that's what an editor's for. So I dabbled a little bit in college, and then after college, life happened, and I set my desire aside. In 2005, in 2005, I joined an online blog that a bunch of wannabe writers decided they wanted to see what a novel written by amateur authors would be like. And I basically can tell you right now it's bad. But it spurred my hidden desire to start writing again. So 10 years after that experience, I published my first book, The Fugitive's Trail. That's kind of how it all got started.
J.C., I think you just gave some of the would-be authors, writers in our listening audience the idea that maybe they can do this. Because I love your story. I love what you said. You just sort of started this and you just felt like this was a thing to do. I'm curious about your process. Sean Kruger is a very interesting character. Where did he come from? Is he a combination of someone that you know? Did he just come out of your head full blown? Where did that character come from?
Well, that's interesting. Let's go back to that blog where wannabe writers tried to write a novel. Kruger started out as a scallywag, and he didn't even have a first name at that time. But he was the character that I provided to this online blog. Well, he stayed in my mind over the next 2 years, and he would graduate. He got his first name, his name Sean, and he basically went from being a scallywag to a sheriff. Then he was a U.S. Marshal, and finally, after meeting an FBI agent, he became an FBI agent. And since I have a background in psychology, he became a profiler. So that was the evolution of the character. He's a combination of a lot of things. As I told another interview some time ago, that I take all the people I've met and learned from over the years and throw them into a food processor. And what comes out is my character. So he's a combination of a lot of different individuals I've met.
I really like that he has evolved over time. And I think that that's often true about some of these characters. They do stay with an author. And for you write fiction, and that's a very interesting creative process. I told you as we were talking earlier, I've written a little fiction. And it's such an interesting... it's almost like, for me, possession. It was almost like the characters would come and find me. I would be asleep, and I would dream some scene out of the novel, and I would have to get up immediately and either grab a pad and a pen or go into the computer and start slamming what was in my head down, or it would just evaporate, and the next morning it was gone. It's the most interesting creative process. How does this work for you? Do you see the scenes in your head? Are you a seat of the pantser? Are you an outliner? How does your process work for you?
I'm a pantser. And how it works for me is my first draft is actually a very detailed outline. But I don't sit down with, I know where I want to start. I know where I want to end. It's that middle that is the part that you kind of do on a day-by-day basis. And, it's one of the things about The Dark Trail was that when I first sat down and wrote it, it was going in a direction I didn't like. So I got about 50,000 words into it, and I said, well, this is not working at all. So I cut 30,000 words out of it and started over. And it improved the book so much that I am no longer afraid of killing my darlings, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You become very, very attached to your characters mm-hmm. because they have a reality. And yes, I think people who don't write fiction or don't have the creative scene in their head. I mean, this is what you forget sometimes is that it's all in your head, and that's where it's all happening, because there is a sense of reality to the people that you've created.
That's true. That's exactly how it works.
Let's talk about Sean Kruger. Now, we've given the listeners a little bit of information about him. I'm sure that there are some listeners who have not read the novels, and so they may not really know who this main character we're about to talk about is. Let's give them just a little background about who he is.
Sure. The first book in the series, The Fugitive's Trail, and if you notice, all my books, or all the Sean Kruger books, end in trail. And that was done on purpose. I don't know if you've ever read anything by John Sanford, but he has the Prey series, and he has a main character. Well, I was fascinated with that series for years and years and years. But what I liked about it was that if you saw a book by John Sanford and it had Prey in the title, you knew it was about his main character. Lucas Davenport is the gentleman's name, and I just was fascinated with that book, the series, for years. Anyway, I wanted to at least give the the reader an opportunity to say, okay, if it says Ends and Trails, and it's by J.C. Fields, it's a Sean Kruger book. And that's how that started. But Sean Kruger was introduced in The Fugitive Trail. I published that book about 5 years ago. And he has evolved from his situation. He was a single parent raising a child by himself. He finds somebody in the first book, and they get married in the second book. And it's an evolution of how he takes his career, which he's in his twilight years of his career as an FBI agent. And it's how does he evolve to the point where he can let go of that career? He does so in The Dark Trail. And that's one of the things that it was a kind of a progression. He meets serial killers. He's basically going after serial killers. And I have a really nasty one in The Imposter's Trail. I've been told that that's one of the better serial killers in fiction right now.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
well, you look at the what's the gentleman's name who was in the Silence of the Lamb?
Oh, yeah. You caught me off guard. I can't.
Yeah, me too. But if you take that serial killer, he is known. People know if you talk about this guy, you know that he's a serial killer. Well, that's what I wanted to produce. If somebody reads that this guy's really nasty, how is Sean Kruger going to catch this guy and stop him? And that's one of the things I like throughout almost all of my books is how does somebody who is just like you and I, but has a little bit of special training, how does he go about capturing these people that are basically evil? And, I don't know if evil's a right word, but they're basically people that do not need to be running around free in our society.
I'm sitting here like I'm in sophomore English. I have my hand up. I'm dying to ask a question.
Sure.
Here's my question. How do you write the serial killer? How do you get into the head of the serial killer? At one point I was thinking about doing something with the Jack the Ripper kind of character. And so I started doing research into, the Jack the Ripper murders. And I started looking at the pictures of the prostitutes that were killed by the Ripper. And I started doing, all of that kind of research. And that mind that I was about to have to step into, I couldn't step into because it was too evil for me. How do you step into the serial killer mind, and then how do you step out of that mind without being scathed in some way or another?
Well, the way I do it is I fall back on my degree in college, and you have to basically realize that there are certain traits of human beings that are narcissistic. There's a great book by a couple of PhDs. It's called Snakes in Suits. And it's basically about the narcissists and the sociopaths that are in business today. And I hate to say this, but I have met those types of people over the years in my day career. And if you observe these people, you see why and how they are almost invisible in society because they know how to act normal. They're not normal, but they know how to act normal. And I think it was those experiences that I have experienced over my career of meeting people like that allows me to write from their perspective. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, good answer. I was about to say, really good answer, because I've always wanted to talk to someone who wrote that kind of character and ask the question that I just asked. You and I absolutely could talk for hours. I can already tell that. Let's get back on track.
Sure.
And let's give the listeners a little bit of an overview of the Dark Trail. Now, when we were talking earlier, you talked about the conflicts that are in this book. Let's give them an overview, and then let's talk about that.
Okay, this is the book where Sean Kruger is approaching his 57th birthday. Now, as a federal law enforcement agent, he has to retire on his 57th birthday. Anybody who carries a gun for the federal government must retire at 57. At least that's what a retired ICE agent told me, and he's a good friend of mine. And he basically helped me through the process of why these individuals have to retire at 57. It's kind of like an airline pilot who has to retire at 65. But it's that he's approaching his 57th birthday, and he knows he's going to retire, and he's in a real foul mood, the first part of the book. Then one of his friends and mentors is killed in the first chapter, and he is brought into the investigation. And he knows he has a certain amount of time left to solve this murder. And it starts causing conflicts because he knows he has to retire, he knows he needs to solve this, and he's going nowhere. Well, as the book evolves, he goes through some inner conflicts that I actually experienced similar. Well, let's put it this way. His inner conflicts are derived from the inner conflicts that I felt over the past 6 months trying to determine that I should retire and become a full-time author. So that personal experience goes into his inner conflicts during the writing of this book. And it's my favorite. Of the 6 books I've written in this series, it's my favorite because there's a little bit of personal conflicts and personal thoughts and feelings in the book. But basically what it works out to is that, of course, he's successful. Or he wouldn't be you have to have a successful movie.
Yes, exactly.
So, that's kind of what it's about. It's about the inner conflicts of retiring from a job that you love to go on and do something else.
And I really am appreciative of you saying that, because I think our listeners, when they read this book, will feel that smack of reality, because you just said these inner conflicts reflect my inner conflicts. Now, if we've not teased them enough about this new book, let's let them know where the book is available. And I always check Amazon, and I went to Amazon and looked this morning, and they're all 6 of the Sean Kruger novels are right there, and I found this one. And if they just let me give the name and do some spelling so that they know exactly what they need to put in the search feature. If you've never been to Amazon, when you put in Amazon.com and click on it, a page will come up, and at the top there's a big box that's a search feature. All you have to do is put The Dark Trail by J. C. Fields, Fields. Click on it, and the novel will come right up. And you did a couple of things that I just loved. First of all, when they see the novel, they look at the cover, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little Q that says Look Inside. If they'll click on that little Look Inside, a wonderful excerpt comes up. Before they do that, underneath the cover, it says Audio. Click on that audio feature, and you get to listen to a reading of the very first part of the chapter's excerpt that you'll see right there. And it really makes the book come alive. Tell me about the gentleman's voice that we hear doing the audio reading.
Well, thank you for asking about that, because Paul J. McSorley is my narrator. Or actually, I should call him a performer, because he is, over the course of 6 books, has become the voice of Sean Kruger. I can't imagine anybody else narrating these books at this point. Paul and I have become very good friends, plus we're business partners at this point. He did one for me last fall called A Lone Wolf. It's the start of a new series. And that particular audiobook became a bestseller in March of this year. And that particular incident allowed him to retire from his day job and allowed me to retire from my day job. So Paul and I have a bond that probably is going to be hard to break. But Paul does a wonderful job of performing the books. He is, like I said, he has been the voice through the entire series and will continue to be the voice as the series goes on. But he is out of Cincinnati, and he and I have never met face to face. That's what's weird about it. But we have a close friendship and a very workable working relationship. I know that's using the same word in the same places.
It's okay. I'm not grading you. It's okay.
But anyway, that's a little bit about Paul. He's just a wonderful individual, and he has devoted his time now. He's got about 100 books that he has narrated over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. And he's just wonderful. I am blessed to have him as my narrator.
Well, the thing that happened for me is I looked at the page, I saw the audio, I clicked on it and listened to Paul read the very first part of the chapter. So when I clicked on the look here button and the book opened up and I went to the front, I continued as I started to read the first part of the chapter. I continued to hear Paul's voice because the audio was right there, and I thought that was very effective. Congratulations on doing it that way. That's really a very effective way to do it.
Thank you.
Are all 6 of the books available in audio as well as Kindle, hardback, and paperback?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, you're not really doing a lot of social media. You do have a wonderful website. Let's give the listeners your website address and tell them what they'll find when they go there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's www.jcfieldsbooks.com. And I will brag a little bit. I designed it myself.
Oh, good job.
Thank you. On the first page, the home page, basically, you will see the latest book, The Dark Trail, as a feature. Underneath that is a lone wolf, and basically with the big, old bestseller label right underneath it. You got to make sure people know that. And in between is a way to sign up for my newsletter. Now, I put out a newsletter 2 or 3, sometimes 4 a month. But I only do that when I've got something special. I don't put a bunch of trivia out there. If I'm offering a book for sale or promoting it, it goes in my newsletter. And I also use that to promote other authors' new books. But anyway, you can sign up for the newsletter in that middle section. Then I go into, you can look and preview the ebooks and paperbacks, and then I have an audiobook page. On the audiobook page, you can listen to any one of the samples that are available on Amazon on that page. And then there's a little bit about me, and which you have done a wonderful job of reviewing earlier in this interview. And then there is the events coming up, which aren't a lot right now because of the COVID situation. And then there's another way of signing up where I'm offering a free audio download of any of the audiobooks you would like. That's on the contact us or contact me page. But that's basically what the website's like. And like I said, I designed it myself, and I've had a lot of compliments about it. So that's it.
It's very attractive. It works very well. So I would encourage people to, go look at the website, especially if they're curious, about who you are, what you look like, your background. We've covered a little, but there's more information there. What else did you want to talk about the books? The books are available in some other venues that you wanted to discuss.
Well, they're available of course, on Amazon and Audible. You can get them on Barnes & Noble, but it basically is published by Amazon. And I have not been real successful on the Barnes & Noble site, but I don't think too many people are. If you're in the store, that's fine. But I don't really promote Barnes & Noble that much. I'm not anywhere else. I think I'm on our Audible are on iTunes, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where they are. But I'm, like I said, Amazon and Audible. You will, if you go to any of those sites, type in J.C. Fields, you will get you'll get a summary of what's available.
You're on some of the book sites like Fussy Librarian.
Yes, yeah. I promote through various other. I think they're basically websites, but I promote on Free Booksy, Fussy Librarian, eBook News, and a lot of them. I'm experimenting with different ones. BookSense is one of them. Book Cave is another one. Books Adrenaline. There's a whole bunch of different sites that you will find where I promote. Like I said, I promote at least 3 or 4 books a month. Next week, I've got The Money Trail and The Dark Trail being promoted on those sites, and then I have The Lone Wolf the following week. So there's all kinds of opportunities to grab my book for either free or at a discounted price.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you gave the listeners those bits of information. I think that's really important. I always like for the author to have their last word about their book, because it's your book and this is your character. These books are exciting. They're full of action. When I close the back cover, whether literally or metaphorically for the last time, what do you want me to take away? Do you want me to simply take away that this was a really rollicking good read and I had a great time and thanks for the action and all the good story? Or is there a message that you would like for me as a reader to walk away with, JC?
I think one of the first one you said is, did I have a good time? Did I enjoy the book? Did I enjoy the action or whatever? Did it keep me up at night? I think that's probably 90% of what my goal is, to entertain, get people away from their day-to-day grungy circumstances, or whatever their day-to-day circumstances. On the other hand, what I want the reader to realize is that I don't care for thriller books that have a superhuman protagonist in it. There's one book, I won't mention the author's name, but his protagonist will be shot, broken leg, broken arm, basically blind in one eye because of blood trickling into it, and he is still going. And, kind of like the ever-ready bunny, he's still going. And it's just not realistic. I mean, Sean Kruger gets wounded in probably 3 of the 6 books. And he has to he's down for the count. And that's what I want people to know, is that he's a person. He's a real human being. He's got human feelings and desires and goals. And he has family. But the main thing is just have a good time reading it. I mean, it's entertainment. That's all I can say.
And right now, we all need to be entertained, and we all need to go somewhere else. And I think that's one of the things that good writers do with their books. And you transport us out of all the junk that's going on in society right now, and we get to go to another place and have an adventure. And that's
exactly.
I mean, that's wonderful. That's exactly what we need right now. So thank you so much for writing such engaging books and for pulling us right in. Yeah, pulling us right in and letting us go along with Sean and his adventures.
Thank you.
This has just been such a pleasure, J.C. Fields. I have enjoyed talking with you more than I can verbalize. Thank you so much for being our guest today on Books on Air.
You're welcome. I've enjoyed it.
Remember, you can find all of the Sean Kruger series on Amazon. Particularly, we're talking about The Dark Trail by author J.C. Fields. You've been listening to the Books on Air podcast brought to you on webtalkradio.net. You can also hear this podcast on iTunes as well as iHeartRadio. I'm Suzanne Harris, and I hope you'll join our next Books on Air podcast. Remember, it's the place to be, and you never know who will be here with me. Thank you so very much for listening.